Welcome into the Backroads Bill podcast. I'm Ben, and on this episode, we are going to be connecting the dots between a couple of episodes that we've done featuring the Cold War crash pilot, Gaylord True, who was an American fighter jet pilot who unfortunately crashed and lost his life back in the 60s. And then, of course, Bill finding his son, Denny. We had him on the podcast. And then, unfortunately, Denny passing away just weeks before they were planning to go up there and put together this plaque that was to commemorate him. You can go back and listen to those episodes. We just did an episode probably about a month ago with a friend of the show, Brian Emblem, who went alongside Bill up to the crash site to commemorate both Gaylord and his son Denny in a very touching gesture. But our guest today, where the connection all comes back into, is our guest was the guide that brought them kind of from the land, or I guess you could say almost civilization, or whatever you want to call it, to the actual crash site, which is in the middle of the bush in a very tough terrain. It's not easy to get through. And our guest today, she is somebody who is at a very young age, when most of us are trying to figure out where we want to go with her life. She's actually built a business up and built up a tourism/guiding business. And it's been very successful, and she's had a lot of growth, and it's been absolutely fantastic. So we get to talk to her about her love of the outdoors, where it came from, why she decided to do what she wants, and what does the future look like for her being such a young person, such a young business woman, where things can go in the future. And it's very, very exciting. So we're going to get to all of that. But first, a word from today's title sponsor, the North Bay Regional Health Center Foundation.
Dear North Bay, as a single mom and full-time student, life can feel overwhelming and budgets are always tight. But one thing I never question is how deeply I care about my community. When I began volunteering at the North Bay Regional Health Center, I saw firsthand how much the healthcare system means to people, especially when life takes an unexpected turn. It made me think, what if it was my child, my parent, or my friend that was in need of care? That's when I realized I wanted to do more, to be part of something bigger than myself. I joined the I Give monthly club because even a small monthly gift can have a meaningful impact, helping ensure everyone in our community has access to the care they need right here at home. If you believe in strong, local health care, I hope you'll join me. Sign up at nbrhcfoundation.ca or call 705-495-8125. It's simple and it matters. With gratitude, Kim Cosgrove.
We want to welcome into the podcast here today Mylène, who you probably know her a little bit better as Follow Her North. Mylène, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you know what? This is the story. The Cold War crash is one story, and we've talked about that on a few podcasts. This is about the story of Mylène Colombe and Follow Her North, and I urge people to go to her website, which we'll cite at the end. But as an extraordinarily young person, has accomplished so much as a professional guide in the Northern Ontario tourism industry. Had to have her on because she epitomizes, I think, what young people may do if they stay home and they embrace an industry that some people don't think is an industry. You know, we think about forestry and mining. We don't think about tourism, but and I think it's okay to tell people that you're only 21 years of age, correct?
I just turned 22 July 3rd.
You lied, Bill.
Yeah, there's the updated fact check right on cue that her future is so bright and what she's doing. And we're going to talk about all these multifaceted things on the Backroad Bill podcast. Okay. So actually the first question right out of the gate is, how did this start? Not necessarily the business, but I know you know your family story about getting you, because we often in the Backroads Bill podcast we talk about vitamin N and nature and the outdoors, and about let's start with the love for nature and your family, then move forward into how the business started.
Yeah, for sure. So my parents actually met on the Mississippi River, which my mom was there with her family, my dad was there with his friends, and he just spent the entire night at my mom's family campfire. And then after that, they went on a date, and that's how our family started. And they did multiple trips. Hunting, fishing, canoeing, snowmobiling as a couple. And then they had me and my sisters, and they just never stopped. They just always brought us along. We did everything you can do in Northern Ontario each season. We did so much. Every weekend we were always gone. And we also played a lot of hockey. So as soon as there was like no hockey tournament, it was like, we're going on a snowmobile trip. We're going to camp. We're doing firewood, ice fishing. It was like nonstop. And it's the only way of life I know, like nonstop every weekend doing something, going on trips. So I guess I just didn't have a choice to fall in love with nature. And it's all I know.
Yeah, naturally you have it in your DNA. But when, as high school and as you started to get to the conclusion of high school, how did this business idea about Follow Her North evolve? And again, we should tell everyone that you're from Hearst and that's your home base. But anyway, tell us about how the business started.
Yeah, for sure. So I always say, I'm from Hearst, born, raised, and staying forever. That's like
good for you.
Yeah. So actually, like through school, I think in 8th grade, we had a school project. It was called like Vendez vos idées in French, so sell your ideas. And you had to build a business, either a product or a service that would benefit your town or your community. And that's where I created, at that time, it was called Sans demi-tour. So translation would be like no turning back. And it was exactly what I'm doing today with Follow Your North. So I had kids camp, pontoon tours, snowmobile tours, fish hut rentals, and I built a fictional website for that project, and I used it as my oral presentation to present to the judges. I didn't win, unfortunately. They chose a washing and dryer machine that could fold clothes, but I didn't discourage myself. And that's kind of like where all those ideas were put together. But we also, like, another important thing is that I grew up seeing my dad guiding by snowmobile. So I was super young. I remember like seeing all the snowmobiles in front of our house in town, and I would cry because I couldn't go with him. But now I get to leave with him, and even sometimes I'm the one going and he stays behind. So I guess that was the first steps.
Yeah, no, and of course, I remember the first time into the Cold War crash, your father came along with your sister, but that during that time period, a few years back, you were evolving this idea about Following Her North, and then tell us how you took that leap from high school going forward.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so many things happen, and it's like when I look back, I'm like, how did everybody that I meet get on my path, and how did this all happen to me, So 10, 11th grade, you're like, okay, we need to start figuring out what I'm going to do with my life. In 11th grade, I had the outdoor ed program at the high school, which had a course that was explorations of career in the outdoors. And our final project was building a presentation on our dream job. Obviously, I chose being an outdoor guide, built a really nice presentation on that. And then one thing led to another. COVID hit, I was working student jobs, and then I was doing online school and working. And I did a co-op program at Veilleux Camping in Marina, which Julie, the owner, she helped me a lot. She registered me for different webinars, tourism stuff, because that was their business. I was doing projects for their business. And then she found that summer company grant, and that with that I got like mentorship on how to build a business plan. I had already started to expand my dad's business by renting fish hut. We were doing freighter tours, but my dad was still the boss. And at that time, like Follow Her North was just an Instagram page to share my personal adventures that I was doing with my family and my partner, So one thing led to another. I built my business plan with the summer company, and that's how like Follow Her North was born.
Yeah. Now you went to college.
Yes, I did. So so just before college, my 12th grade, I finished my co-op program early, got a special permission from the school board that I could leave to go to do my guide training. So I left 42 days to Huntsville with MHO Adventures. They're a really great company offering different courses, certifications for outdoor canoeing, expedition canoeing guides. So that program was like a big step in me becoming a certified guide. And after that, I left for college. At first, I was registered in the Tourism, Travel, and Eco-Adventure program at Confederation College. And with COVID and all that, I got an email one day that the program was canceled and wouldn't be offered. And like for me, it was like a big step back because that was my dream program. It felt right. I was looking ahead and like really excited to go. So last minute choices, I decided to stay at Confederation and took business marketing. And I got my certificate in business fundamentals because I didn't finish my second year. Business took over and I focused on that.
Yeah, and I think that was a wise choice. And Ben, there are not many professional certified guides in Northern Ontario. The word guide is a generic term, and a lot of people like to use it. But certification, because not only with your intensive 42-day training, but all the certifications. And Mylène, what does a professional guide mean to you?
So for me, a professional guide, like for sure, the certifications play a big amount in there. Learning like risk management, learning how to manage a group dynamic, how to read different personalities, how to offer really good experience to people. Sometimes you have your plan, but it doesn't match with the person's. So you have to adapt. It's really like showing a lot of expertise and also of the area, like getting your facts, having stories, talking with local people, getting all the info you can. Just like yesterday, I had MHO Adventures here at my place. They were leaving for a trip on the Mississippi River, and I sat down with their guide, and I felt like I was the person I usually talk to. Like, I was giving them info about the river, stories that happened on the river. I really felt like I was, the person I usually ask questions to. So that's what being a professional guide means to me.
Yeah, you were telling stories about Thunderhouse Falls and Pinnacle Rock and all those good things, and about the heritage, the indigenous heritage of the river. And Ben, at 22 years of age, Mylène has received a number of awards. But here's the other thing, because we've utilized her services. And talking about story, we're going to talk about the Cold War story in just a moment. But we've utilized her services, par excellence, by the way. And also she owns a small lodge that she financed through, and that's not important. So she can put you up, and it's a complete package. But tell us about a few of your packages with regards to winter and summer, just to give the context about how you offer through
your
services of Follow Her North.
Yeah. So with Follow Her North, like every season has different adventures. I'll start with the spring. I always start with spring. The rivers are high, water's flowing, so we take advantage of that to travel up and down rivers with freighter canoes. A big canoe with a motor at the back. You don't have to paddle. You sit back, enjoy the ride. You've seen it in the last podcast. And you can get through to truly amazing places that you can't access the rest of the year. So for people that are interested in a freighter adventure, you call me. I have a place to stay here at my bed and breakfast, and then everything from your breakfast to your lunch will be taken care of. That's how I work. And then summer, I offer canoe trips. Yes, it can be a few days, but I really want to offer memories or like adventures to as many people as I can. So like an hour, if you've got an hour, you're stopping by Hearst, like stop and see me. I will do something quickly, you know. It's all kinds of things that I offer: canoeing, ATV, camping. I mean, anything you can think of, I'll probably make it happen, or I've done it a bunch of times. Um, I've got like pre-made packages, but I'm always open. I always say like custom trips are always the best. You get really what you want. You put in your request and I make them happen. And then in the fall, like hunting, moose hunting, I'm working on trying to get some tags for people. And if you have your own, I really like to put that with canoe tripping. So that's really, really a fun way to hunt. And going back to the traditional style of hunting, you know, not with quads and argos or, and then the winter is mainly snowmobile trips to James Bay. That's like what I do.
Such diversification.
She reminds me of you in a way. If you were a guide, right? It's very similar. Like,
well, I've done, I guess, in a different kind of leadership, because Mylène does a lot with schools as well, and outdoor education and environmental education. That's a lot of her messaging to schools, because as a francophone, the dual language is really, really important in delivery. And so she does, you know, in her downtime, if there is such a thing, she'll do that with schools, and that's really important. And she's said to me, you know, that's another part of herself. The guiding with others is one thing, but working with school kids another, and you can talk about that. But just as an example, Ben, like for instance, a custom design trip would be, as Backroads Bill, I often say Thunderhouse Falls in your, you know, the top 10 places in Northern Ontario you should go to. One would be like New Post Falls or Thunderhouse Falls. So in that freighter canoe, you could go down and back and those kinds of things, or you can also snowshoe in, or you can go in by a snowmobile. So these are the kinds of things that on a custom design that are so unique that you are able to do. But before we lose that good thought and talk about the Cold War crash, tell us a little bit about what you do in the schools.
Yeah, so in the schools, I've done so many different things. Usually what I will do is like a little survival workshop. We take the kids out. We go like either a hiking trail. I've done treasure hunts in hiking trails. We learn how to build fires. I do always a little water filtration competition, who gets the clearest water. That's all kind of things I do. And this year I started a new project. It's inspired by the book Paddle to the Sea. So we launched little cedar canoes in the rivers in the Mississippi watershed and the Albany watershed. Hopefully they all have a code. You can track them on my website, and hopefully when people find them, they register them on my website and we can track. And there's so much more to the project. You know, we did like analyzing the water quality, oxygen, and there's like that whole powerful message that the canoe is carrying down the river. So that's kind of all my educational side that I do at schools.
Yeah, we've had Roy McGregor on the Backroads Bill podcast, and he says, you know, in his many canoe books, he says, no canoe, no Canada, and the canoe is so important to our outdoor culture. That's really, really important. Now, the Cold War crash, we've had Denny True on before he passed away, and was supposed to come up to the Kabi River and visit the site of where his father perished in a plane crash, fighter jet, and a bomber crash during the Cold War. We've had Brian on talking about this.
Everything.
Brian's
been on for everything, yeah.
You know, about us going there and then finally get there. But of course, in this particular case, this past spring, we would not have got there and put up the memorial to father and son in the Cold War cross if it wasn't for Follow Her North and came along. So I know you haven't asked any questions yet, Ben, but I think one question for sure off the top is, you know, how did you feel about that? Because you knew what we wanted to do. First of all, you know, the year before, you were going to take us with Denny True. And of course, he passed away. And in fact, it was just, days before we were set to go, and here I email her or call her, whatever, texted her, and we're not going. And then a year later, in my brain, we had to go because I'm not 23 anymore, and this memorial thing and putting closure to this paranormal kind of thing that I experienced in the first trip. Anyway, how did you feel about that day and being part of taking two old guys up there, and you had been there before with your dad and that kind of thing, and I know you take people there upon request if they do so, and you go up and down that river too with Indigenous students, and in fact you were going the last time we were there, you were going the very next week, I think, to go to camp with them. But anyway, your random thoughts about that.
Yeah. So like if we think of the day last year, I remember planning it, and it was just such a shock to learn that he had a heart attack, and then a couple days or the next day he passed away. And I was like, oh my gosh, he was coming up. Like, as a guide, I think our worst nightmare is something happening to our clients. So I'm glad he was surrounded by his family, that he was surrounded by love, and not really remote at the plane crash. He got well taken care of. So for sure that felt good to me that he was still with his family and not with us. But I felt really good this year to go with you guys and, be back there and really having his father and him in our thoughts. And what you described it so well, how that day was, I don't know, special. I'm losing the words of how to describe how I felt that day, but it felt really rewarding, not rewarding for me, but it's so hard to
It's
describe
like a
feelings
closure
in
thing
English.
almost.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it brought closure, but no, it was a special day. Everything you said is spot on. And it was a very, very cold day on the river too. And when we get there, etc. And here's how here's how it happened. We put up the memorial and all this kind of thing, hammer it into the tundra, into the muskeg, I should say, and then at the end we're just about ready to go, and I blurred out literally, oh, we should say a prayer. And this one here, she actually reaches into her back pocket in some sort of wallet and pulls out this little prayer folded up, and it's a Indigenous prayer, and we read it. It was and the words were so familiar, as in appropriate to where we were and what we were doing. It was just that whole thing that was all meant to be, right? And in my last story about this, I say, I looked around and the faces of father and son were smiling because the whole thing was really well. But Benny, you've got some questions, but that's exactly how that day went, and it was special. And I thank you. I mean, in my lifetime, that's one of those stories that multifaceted for some reason, and then put it together multiple times, and then getting up there and because of Follow Her North.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go backtrack a little bit into this conversation.
Yes.
Way before, when we were talking a little bit about when you were talking about talking to the guide, and you were kind of being the trainer in that instance where usually you're on the flip side of that, and obviously being young, you just don't have experience, and you gain a lot of experience as you get older, and it's more about actually doing something. It's not about your actual age, it's more about your age or the many years that you've spent doing whatever you're doing. But the one thing that personally for me that I've been trying to get over is that sense of as you get older, you realize, oh, I'm at a certain age, or I'm at a certain part of my life where you become the teacher, you become the mentor, or those roles kind of flip. So is there a time when you started to feel like you belonged, or you felt like you deserved to be where you are, or that you were like, hey, I'm actually a guide, I'm actually doing all this really cool stuff, and now I'm the mentor or the teacher or the expert on what we're doing?
I don't think it felt really weird for me yesterday, being the one giving all that information, because like I said, that's usually the opposite. And I think Yes, I'm young. Yes, I've had some trips. I've been in the outdoors all my life. That's all I know. But I still have so much more to learn. And I think you learn throughout the lifetime. There's so like I will never know everything. So I don't know, but for now, I don't see myself becoming that person yet. Like I have so much more to learn and to experience, so many places to travel to. um I took some notes actually on this because I was reflecting and I was like, okay. Yesterday was just, yeah, crazy for me. But what I want to say is like, really, when you pay attention to people, every trip teaches you something. And when I think about my snowmobiling trips, I always ask all my clients what they do for a living. And, each one of them, so snowmobiling trips, my clientele is mostly men over 40, all the way to like 80 years old. So obviously they've got a lot of experience they've lived. And I get advices from each one of them. And my dad, when he's guiding with me, he always asks all the clients, okay, like my daughter is still learning, she's still young. If you have one advice to say to her, now's your time. And I'm really grateful that my dad does that because, yes, I'm young and I'm still learning. I've got some knowledge, but I still have so much more to learn.
North Bay's turning 100. And what a time to be here! From the buzz of the Heritage Parade to sunset concerts at the waterfront, the city is alive with celebration. And you know who's right in the middle of it all? Homewood Suites by Hilton North Bay. We're proud to be a part of this milestone moment. Whether you're coming home from a family reunion, planning a gathering with friends, or just simply making the most of everything the Centennial has to offer, our doors are open. Stay in a spacious suite that feels like home, with a full kitchen to cook in, room to relax, and a space to unwind after a full day of fun. Are you hosting something bigger? Our event spaces and amazing local partners like the Grand and Stock Transportation make it easy to bring people together. Best of all, they're just steps from the action. The fireworks, the food trucks, the music, the laughter, it's all right here. Celebrate 100 years of North Bay with us. Use code Centennial to save on your stay anytime this year. Be at home with Homewood Suites by Hilton North Bay. Join the party today at 495 Oak Street West or give us a call at 705-495-3000.
It's almost that time of year. Early mornings at the rink, fresh notebooks and backpacks, and a community gearing up for another great season of varsity sports. At Source for Sports North Bay, we're proud to be part of it all. Whether it's finding your kid's first pair of skates, gearing up for tryouts, or outfitting your team for the season ahead, we've got you covered. Because here, we're not just a sports store, we're neighbors, coaches, teammates, and fans. And we're proud to cheer you on every shift, step, and stride of the way. Visit Source for Sports North Bay at 1321 Fisher Street and let us help you along your way.
So Brian and I, we didn't know how old Follower North is, Mylène was, and so we guessed and we were way off.
What did you say?
Well, I don't know, 28, 29, whatever. And so we were way off. So I look at her as an experienced person now. I have no, we do learn by certain aspects, examples when we're out there, and because we pick up tips and things we should do and not do, I guess, as a leader, as a guide. But I see her as a very experienced person, and at 22 years of age, having received awards, tourism awards, and having her own company, her own lodge, etc. Well, I think maybe you'll probably get a little wiser in all the stories you have, but that'll just come with time. But other than that, I'm gobsmacked actually sometimes to think about where you're at and what you've done. Seriously, I don't think there are any other examples like this. Certainly not in Northern Ontario, and you'd have to cast a net far and wide to see someone that 22 years of age, has your own company, has your own lodge, leading people here, there, and everywhere in remote situations too. We're not going to the mall, and we're not going to the local museum down the street and doing those kinds of things, Ben. But anyway, back over to you.
You're not supposed to compare yourself to others, but when you hear that, it kind of makes you feel like, oh, what have I done with my life almost, But going about, we talked a little bit about how you help some like Indigenous people through the river. And one of the thing with Bill is that that's a big part of his, of the Backroads Bill moniker is his, your relationship with Indigenous peoples. And so, especially being in Hearst, and as you go further and further north, the population becomes much like the ratio of I would say settler versus Indigenous gets a lot lower, and it becomes more Indigenous based. So, I guess maybe just your experience with Indigenous culture and how that's helped shape, because of their love of the environment and nature, how that's maybe shaped, or you'd like it to shape what you do.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, for sure. One really good, or like I guess where my first relationship with Indigenous people started was my mom. My mom being from Matai, she grew up alongside Fred Negan, the guardian of the Mississippi. Such a wise man. He knew the river so well, and my dad would always talk to him about like wanting advices on how to travel on the river, what's safe, what's not to do, all that kind of stuff. And I have pictures with him as a baby, and I really grew up alongside with him. I had the opportunity to do a trip to his camp. We made it all the way to Thunder Falls. He was getting too old, so couldn't come up with us, but just being in his camp with him, listening to his stories, just how he would talk solo and so calm, and with so being so wise, and just it really showed me how to listen sometimes. I always have a lot to say, but sometimes it's just good to listen. And so Fred really shaped that for me. And then, as I was traveling up along the coast of James Bay, the communities are so welcoming. That's what I really found when I go up there. I always say I have my winter family in each community. I have those families that welcome me in their home. They feed me, and then we go out on the land together. It's just, I get to see how they live, how the bay is special, how everything, the time revolves around the tides, spring goose sun, all that stuff. And going this year, like Bill was saying, the very next week I was going downriver to English River or Mama Matawa with Constance Lake School, and just having all the kids out there, Yes, people Indigenous have a really strong connection with nature, but unfortunately with the residential schools, the colonization, they lost a lot of it. So it feels really, really good to be part of bringing the kids back and seeing their elders and seeing their mentors teaching them. It's they're going back to it. And it's helping a lot of people. And I'm really, really happy to be part of that and to help them, have the best experience out on the land. And I mean, I understand their connection to the nature. When you're being out there, when you're on canoe trips for a long time, that's when you feel that connection. And that's how I realize, how important it is. And I think that's really that connection that I have with nature that connected us. And that's how I always wonder, how are they going to welcome me in their community? I'm just an outsider coming from the South, and I always feel like nature or the creator is taking care of it and they're connecting us for a reason.
I had the pleasure of an honor of meeting Fred Negan before he passed as an Indigenous elder, and you've explained who he was. And again, I think your answer just now, that relationship that you've nurtured with the land based on meeting many people, Indigenous people, and of course, that whole upbringing, of course, you have that. And I always like to talk to people that have that relationship with nature and what they get out of it. And all people, all of us get something out of being outside, certainly. But for some of us who spend a lot of time out there, the intensity of of doing that itself is a privilege and an opportunity. But I only say that as a comment. Ben, did you have another question?
I always have questions.
I know you always have questions. I still have questions, but you go ahead.
So we just talked to Ecology Center. We were just talking about it, and you were going through how you started the Ecology Center,
sure,
and your education, and you were taking people out on camping trips, and I guess, and I know you're young, and there's a lot of road in front of you, but have you ever thought about doing of starting and having a permanent spot, something that you can grow and get people and attract people to, instead of maybe just being as, I guess, mobile, like any sort of plans that way?
Not right now. A lot of people are asking me, like, what's your plan with Follower North? Right now, I have to say I'm riding the roller coaster I built. I don't know where it's going. Yeah, I don't know where it's going. I don't know what the future holds for me. But that's for sure a really interesting thought. Yeah.
Well, one thing for sure, because she has her, the bed and breakfast, the small lodge, is that she's very, very smart in another entrepreneurial way, is that you don't need a base because that's more costs. So being mobile and using other places, whether it's equipment or otherwise, that's a smart thing to do, because you don't need another cost. So that's all part of, she went to school for that, and she understands the value of money and understands the value of what you have to give to your clients as well, whether it's a school group or, a snowmobile trip up to James Bay Coast with a small group of people. And all these adventures all have the one thing in common: they're outside, and you have to take care of people. And I often tell people about this. As an outdoor educator, you have to mitigate the risk. You have to understand the risk, and at the same time, you have to be entertaining, and you have to be on all the time, don't you? It's not like, I can. Tell us a little bit about that, and because my last question was going to be, what do you get from leading people? What are those rewards that you find from doing just that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so much. I always say, if I didn't need money to live, I wouldn't charge anybody to take them out, because the reactions or like the memories I see people creating in the outdoors is just like, if that would make me live, if that would buy me food, that would be enough for me. So like, seeing the smiles, seeing the connections that people will make, people open up in nature, people feel different things that they don't take the time to feel when they're at home, or like the go lifestyle they're living, So just being able to make people feel that feeling that I get when I'm in the nature, like I think that's the most rewarding thing you can get as a guide.
Such wise words, Ben, from a young person. I'm not going to harp on that, but it's like talking to someone that should be a lot older. Anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, she's again, there's a lot of reflections between the youth and the more experienced, the grizzled veteran,
sure,
I would say. And I know you've given some nuggets of wisdom, but knowing what she's done with her business, and you being a business person and also an outdoors person, like very similar trajectories. What is the sage piece of advice or things that you kind of wish you knew at that age that would have set you up maybe for even more success, or maybe it's a lesson you learned a hard way?
Well, first of all, if you love the outdoors and you try to figure out how you can create a job with nature. So, for instance, teachers want to be outdoor educators, but there's not many opportunities, or they come to places and they say, "Oh, I want to become a teacher." But then they graduate and they go into the schools, which I call factories sometimes on a bad day, but they don't get those opportunities. So to figure out a pathway to how to create a living for oneself and do that, because I don't know, we're not rich, but we're enriched by the things we do. So I think I'd rather be enriched and try to make my way through that business, day-to-day business things you have to do, because we love doing the things that we're doing because that's where we want to be.
I had so many thoughts when he was talking. There's so much I want to say.
Well, you should say it because here's your opportunity. But again, starting at, I didn't start, I was doing things. In fact, my first job was running a hostel, an outdoor hostel in Collingwood, and I was doing it similar to about how old you were, or are, I should say. And then, you just keep going along when experiences or opportunities happen. I'm sure, just the diversity, renting out ice huts. So the first time I didn't know that. So I just thought, another way to make money, another way to perhaps do programming, and just give that opportunity to people that don't want ice huts, don't have ice huts or whatever. I just thought, how smart is this? So I think sometimes that you can probably, here's maybe to help you along there. Like, what is one of the things that really surprised you in your programming packaging that you do? I mean, you've lived all these things, but what is there one that really thinks, this is maybe better than I thought?
Not on top of my mind right now, but you made me think of something. Like, what I found is a lot of people were they were not jealous, but I'm losing the word that I want to say. But when we were younger, they were always saying to my parents, envious. Yeah, okay, envious.
I was thinking of E-lettered words.
Yeah, they were envious of our family of always doing adventures. And, I think for my dad, it came just naturally to be planning a trip, or there's that fire inside of us that's always planning the next one. And that's what I want to use inside of me to create that for people. And that's what I found, I guess, surprising in all my trips is that it's so much work for some people to be planning for a fishing trip or a camping trip. They're like, there's all this gear. We have to take care of food. So as an outdoor guide, I really like to use, for me, it comes naturally to be packing for a trip. A menu pops up in my mind just like that, So, for people to be really grateful, and that, for me, I thought it was just natural for people to want to go on adventures and, plan the next one. But that's something I get from my dad, and it's not in everybody, but some people wish to live those adventures. So that's where I come in, and I can give them that opportunity with peace of mind, I guess.
Yeah, I lost my train of thought again. This happened in the last episode when I had one question, and then I lost my train of thought, and it just happened again.
Well, I never lose my train of thought. That's why I have all these things on paper. But, again, the other sage thought is that, and you've discovered this already, that your programs, some of the E's I used, that, the programs have to be educational. They have to be ecological, based on nature. They have to be experiential. You're doing things, whether you're fishing, snowmobiling, hunting, whatever. They have to be entertaining as well. And those are some of the things, again, when you put the whole package together, that you as an entrepreneur or as a teacher, and you're doing all these things, you have to make sure that you're doing this all the time. Not only in the thoughts about before, the safety aspects beforehand, the food, all these kinds of things. I actually think sometimes the planning is just as exciting. That's another E word. Is that is even more so than the delivery. Because good plans, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So that's an easy thing to say, but you have to follow through with that all the time in the outdoors, in particular, because it's not in the outdoors, as you know. There's a lot of variables, weather, water conditions, all those kinds of things that you have to be ready for. Got a story for us? Do you have one story that you want to tell us before we go?
So I'm actually right now I'm all excited again because I'm planning. I want to really put together some short adventures for people passing along on Highway 11. I want it to be user friendly. It's easy to book. It's all organized, and when you were saying like it's as exciting to plan as to execute, I'm in that planning stage right now and I'm having the time of my life. It's so fun, like finding new ideas, adding little touches that makes the experience even better. And I have like 3 or 4 in mind, and it's like I'm gonna have bins ready with all the stuff I'll need for each trip. I'll be ready to go every time. All my little pieces will be in there. So yeah.
Well, I've got a couple of ideas for you because, as you know, Backroads Bill knows the North. Well, I was just thinking about ideas. I would think, going out to Fushimi Provincial Park on a day kayak. There's one that you can do the whole thing. Another one, Ben, this is going to sound weird, but taking someone on a picnic to the Windex lakes that look like the color of Windex. And
that's actually one of my trips.
There you go.
There you go. Great minds think alike.
You can look up that story. You just go Backroads Bill Village Media Windex Lakes. It'll come right up. And that's the kind of thing we talk about on the Backroads Bill podcast. I'm so glad that we've had you on today, and we'll have you on another time.
I have one more thing, though.
Go ahead.
So I had a derailment, but the train's back in the station.
Okay.
Super quick. You kind of talked a little bit about the booking and stuff, but as technology gets better and better and better, and there's new things, whether it's AI, I know people use social media. Where do you think the future of the industry, or where are you seeing the trends go from a technology standpoint where you can use it to your advantage and maybe stay on the pulse a little bit to make sure that you aren't getting left behind, or you're able to innovate a little bit in your space?
Yeah, for sure. So like for me, I always say my website runs my business. My website is my most important tool. Booking, finance, everything goes through there. All my contacts, client info, everything goes through there. So that's a really helpful tool. And then, yeah, for sure, like ChatGPT has been helpful. You can build a business plan in seconds. And I'm just thinking, like when I built my business plan for Follow Her North, it took me a month. And now you can have a business plan built in a day. So for me, it's kind of scary, but exciting at the same times, because that means I can maybe focus my energy on different things. But one thing, like talking technology wise, right now, one thing I really, really enjoy about the outdoors and like the wilderness being remote is the disconnect we get from internet. And I've had some trips with Starlink on trip. It was so different. And it's not the same. So we're going to have to be stronger and really leave the internet behind. And, there's talks about having phone signal everywhere in the world in a couple of years. So for that's really scary for me, because we're all addicted to technology, all addicted to our phones, Wi-Fi, all of that. So one thing I want to do is really stand out in being like, okay, we're going on a trip and we're leaving everything behind. We're leaving our phones. We're not touching them. And that's one thing that's going to be hard for a lot of people.
Yeah, well, here's your slogan, and you can translate that en français. It's something like, disconnect to connect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
You.
It was a great conversation, and good luck with everything in the future. And I know we'll be following what you're doing.
There's no luck involved, Ben, with Follow Her North.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Like, I could have talked with Bill and you, Ben, for a few more hours, actually. And it was such an honor to be on here.
Well, big thank you to Mylène for joining us. And of course, she is part of that next wave of Bills, the next wave of the Adam Schultz, those kind of people who keep the outdoors as an important place. And as a society, as we move closer and closer to urbanization, to technology, all these things that disconnect us from the world and from nature, it's great to see the youth who are the next generation who will be taking that mantle up and keeping things going. And there is a big need for that as well. There's a desire for people who want to get away from life, especially as you get older and there's stressors of adult life and work and all that stuff. to be able to get away from that and have somebody who knows where to go, who knows where to take people. She has a very bright future ahead of her, and we wish her all the luck in the world. And of course, thanks again for jumping on the show with Bill and myself. So if you enjoyed today's episode, you can grab more episodes of the Backroads Bill podcast on your favorite podcast player, including Apple, Spotify, and the video version on the North Bay Echo YouTube channel. You can check out our socials as well underneath North Bay Echo. We do have a website as well, northbayecho.ca, and our newsletter, Echo Essentials, which comes in your inbox every single week, which keeps you covered not just what's going on in the North Bay area and the podcast, but also what's going on in the news cycle as well, and trying to keep you kind of connected with the community that way. So you can check it out. You can sign up for free on northbayecho.ca. So that wraps things up for us here. Join us again next week for another Backroads adventure.